Hi there, this is Ronnie for YouTube again, and I want to talk in this video about the best reasons to go raw, or the reasons that will convince a person that the raw food diet is the best diet, and so on. And if you want to this channel for more videos like that, feel free. I'm hoping that this is working out okay. Back to making regular videos. Watch out for that. Stay subscribed. Ask some questions down below, do what you like. Well, when I got into raw, what convinced me raw? Really, it was just the basic idea of it, and it was the timing of certain things coming together. So I'm not sure why it fully hit me, because I'd heard about it before, I think. I definitely heard about a lady. I heard an interview with a lady when I was younger, when I was like a child basically, or a teenager, and she was talking about doing a raw food diet. And it kind of made sense to me then. It made sense to me. It wasn't something I was going to go and act on straight away, but I was open enough for it to make sense to me. And over the years, I remember times when I experimented with eating more salad and stuff like that. And I started doing things like that when I was trying to eat more raw, and I always ate fruit. But when I came across the idea of raw, it was really when I was open to going vegan, and then I watched a video, and in the video Tim Van Orden was talking about raw, and it all made sense to me. It clicked, and the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. So I wasn't really diving into the research and the information on it. It just made sense to me. And then I watched other YouTubers, and they seemed to be pretty convincing in their own testimonial of the diet. And I read the 80-10-10 book eventually, and then I went to Woodstock, and so I got all this information. And after Woodstock, I kind of dedicated myself to go raw 100%, and was inspired by the people I met there, and the information, but definitely by some of the people who were long-term raw. But even though I've made that decision, I've realised that for other people, they've tried to go raw, went raw for a little bit, and then they've fallen off it. And apparently one of the biggest reasons that people don't stay on any diet, but on a raw diet in particular, is a lack of education. So if a person hasn't really learned a lot about it, doesn't have all this backup of information, they don't feel a lot of confidence in keeping going. And when they feel some negative experiences, or they're not feeling so good, they might attribute it to the diet. And that'll make them want to go back to eating something else. And plus, the other diet is so enticing, so many different flavors, and so, so addictive in a sense, that people obviously want to go back to cooked, easier in many ways. So when someone says to me, like, why do you go raw? If I was to try and convince someone to go raw, there's a few arguments that you can use that we've all maybe used, and one is that it's, all animals eat raw food, all life forms eat raw food, human beings must have at one time eaten raw food. So that there's this kind of what you might call an appeal to nature argument. Well, this is the natural way of doing things. This is what happens in nature. And people say that's a bit of a fallacy, because that's not necessarily mean it's the healthiest thing. And perhaps changing to cooked food actually led us to being smarter and everything else. So it's maybe not the best argument. But you could also say, talk about some of the information about cooked food. When you cook food, you damage nutrients, you lose nutrients, you create compounds that are harmful, carcinogenic, and so on. You dehydrate food, you're taking water out, so you're putting an added stress on the body. You are putting the food into a format where it's harder for the body to digest. You're using foods that when they aren't cooked, the body wouldn't be able to digest. So is it really the best? You're kind of overcoming the sensory safeguards that stop us from eating certain foods because they're bad for us. So there's all these kind of arguments, but still you could say, well, does the science show that raw is better? Is there long-term studies on the benefits of raw over cooked? And I don't know 100% if there is, but I'm suspecting there really isn't. There isn't really a long-term study as far as I know, and there's certainly not, one of these meta studies of studies of studies of studies of all these raw food studies, But it's something that I want to start to research, and it's something I want to look into more. And I think with the festivals, with the events, we have an opportunity to start doing our own studies and maybe even bring in qualified people to assess studies, where we can take people from the start of the event, see what they're like at the end of the event, and see how raw food changes them for 7 days. And maybe some of them would want to stick to a study for a year, so we can see the difference over the course of a year. Maybe we could do that. So, but I really want to start to get grounded in the science of nutrition. So I'm starting to read, I'm starting to research, and I'm really enjoying it actually. And it's really, a lot of it is marrying up with things that I've heard before. So I'm starting to learn that a lot of the teachers that I've been listening to, they're really teaching, the basics that they teach are textbook nutrition stuff. But I do think that there's a bit of a bias still in the world of nutrition, away from raw and away from veganism as well, because they'll still say things in the textbooks like meat is a good source of protein. Well, that can't be true. Something that's carcinogenic and damaging and causes heart disease, how is that a good source of protein? Surely any other source of protein is better than something that's carcinogenic and damaging and unhealthful over time and leads to heart disease, diabetes, and so on. So the textbooks still say things like that, so they're not necessarily fully up to date. And I don't know if they will fully go into the negatives of cooked food, but that's maybe something I'll need to research in chemistry or something like that. But I'm enjoying it, and I do want to become more solid in my arguments about raw. So I'd like to know down below, what are your reasons for going on? How do you, if you were to try and convince someone else, I'm not saying that you do that, but if you were, what would be your argument? Do you have scientific backing to your arguments? Because a lot of the people I've listened to, they've never really been able to give me the references. Now I think we have some good references behind the vegan diet or the plant-based diet. The China studies one. I know that some people think the China study's been debunked or something, but that's silly. You know, that's a lot of rubbish. China study wasn't debunked. But at the same time, what I want to do is look at the basics of nutrition so that I can argue against people talking about the carnivore diet and the paleo diet and the keto diet and all these silly diets. These are definitely not promoted by the standard mainstream of nutrition science. I don't think they're supported archaeologically, anatomically, or anything like that. And it's interesting as well to look into things like intermittent fasting and things like that. People are doing these things, but is there any validity to them? So I've already learned an awful lot through, I literally just put in nutrition textbook PDF and found a PDF of nutrition textbook on Google and started reading through it and skipping through the parts that I wasn't interested in or whatever, and going to the parts, because I didn't really want to learn how to put together a diet with meat and grains and all this stuff. Like I'm not interested in that section of the book, but I'm happy to look at the bit about carbohydrates and the bit about lipids and the bit about proteins and the stuff about vitamins and minerals. So I'm really solidifying some of these thoughts in my mind. And something interesting, for example, was about appetite versus hunger, and this is something that Doug Graham's always taught. So now I'm learning that's actually textbook information. I've heard him talk about that, and now I'm realizing that a lot of what he's teaching is just standard stuff from textbooks, and that's why he doesn't really provide a lot of references, because he just says, well, it's in the textbooks, and he's right. A lot of the stuff he's teaching is in the textbooks. So I'm looking forward to reading more about that. It'd be interesting to see if it talks about any problems with cooked food, and it'll be interesting to see what it says about fruits and vegetables in general. I also learned that organic means a nutrient that has carbon in it is organic. That's what the word organic means. And inorganic nutrients have no carbon. So minerals are inorganic, water is inorganic, but carbohydrates, proteins and fats are organic. And the difference between proteins and fats and lipids is proteins have nitrogen and the other two don't. So lots of little interesting things, but it's nice to know exactly how all these things work rather than just saying, yeah, fruits and vegetables are better or healthier or whatever. I want to be, and I want to be able to teach all that at the UK Fruit Fest and stuff, teach the basics of all this, because I really believe that the more education we can all get, the more clear we can get on it, and the more that we can really go forward and go raw confidently and go vegan confidently and go plant-based or whatever you want to do, you know, in a confident way. Because I think people lack a bit of that confidence, and then they end up going back experimenting with the carnivore diet, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous to me, as someone that's done the due diligence of the research, that I know that that is a terrible diet. That regardless if you feel good on it for 1 day or 2 days or whatever, and I don't think anyone would feel good on it, to be honest, but the overwhelming evidence is showing that that kind of diet is very poor in a whole number of ways. Firstly, you've got no carbohydrate in it, you've got no fiber in it. You know, there's the whole number of things. There's no wonder that people with digestive problems are doing that diet, because basically it slows down your digestion to the point that you how are you even going to digest anything? It's strange. It's kind of a strange diet. So, and I can't imagine how bad you smell and everything doing that diet. Anyway, I want to become more and more and more versed in all this stuff, and even though I feel I've got enough information to do this for myself and to help other people with it and show people how to do that diet, I want to also have the nutrition basics so I can show people. I'm not that bothered about getting a qualification in it, because essentially a qualification just means you've read the textbook, you've been tested on it, and someone more qualified than you is giving you the qualification. So as long as I know the textbook stuff and keep up to date with it, I don't feel like I really need the qualification, but because it's the same thing. And I've got a qualification in other things that I probably wouldn't expect people to think I was an expert on. But anyway, so thanks for watching. Put your comments below. Let me know what arguments you use to convince people. What scientific sources do you use? A lot of these scientific sources people are bringing up are very old, not very tested. Some of it's the kind of old debunked stuff like enzymes and things like that. So let's together work to create a really solid argument for raw food in every single level, including scientifically, and we can push for more scientific research as well. So thank you for watching the video. Feel free to subscribe, share this with others, and look forward to the next video. Thank you.